Welcome to the Stable Minded Podcast. I'm your host, Bob Griffin, along with Gabby Greco. This podcast is brought to you in association with the Illinois American Saddlebred Pleasure Horse Association. Check out iasfa.com for more information. It takes a village to put on this podcast, and this month we're lucky enough to have Brothers Country Supply lend us a helping hand. Brothers is 100% family-owned, and whether you need quality horse feed, premium stall bedding, or supplies to care for any of your other pets, they've got you covered. Stop in and talk to their friendly staff at any one of their locations in Plano, Oswego, DeKalb, Morris, or Ottawa, or check out their website at brotherscountrysupply.com. Brothers, making a pet's quality of life better every day. And I'm here to tell you this episode could not have come at a better time. With horse shows getting into full swing, and as you and your horse are going through the end gate, you want to make sure your strong mental game is coming along for the ride. Today's guest, Betty Kregor, pivoted her success as a golfer and a golfing coach into a thriving performance coaching business, Straight Shot Incorporated. And although you might not see her out in the ring helping make that victory pass, she is most definitely an integral part in the success of many of today's winning equestrians. Why don't we kick off with how did you get started in your coaching business? And tell us a little bit, not only how you got started, but actually what it is that you do.
Well, consider myself a sports performance coach. I was a golfer growing up, played golf from, 3 years old on, was very talented at golf, 3-time All-American, junior world champion at 13 and 15, and, had success at a high level of how much the mental game was intertwined. You can have a great physical game, right? But if your mental game isn't equal, you're not going to perform as well. So I learned that at a young age from a golf instructor that was way ahead of his time with sports psychology teaching back in the 60s and 70s. So I had that background, had everything's by chance, right, or circumstances, and didn't have the best experience in college. I was kind of like the next up and coming college superstar, so to speak, high expectations and all of that. And I went away to school 7 hours, which I probably shouldn't have done. Baby of the family. My engine for hitting a golf ball was having people around me clapping no matter how I did, family and everything. Dropped off at school, and all of a sudden that engine was gone. And I didn't have my father and my golf instructor to help me with the psychology. And in less than 2 years, if anybody's a golfer listening, I went from shooting under par to shooting in the 90s, which is, a big difference. And what happened is that I wasn't less talented. I didn't lose my talent. I lost my mental game. I went from being positive to negative. I worked from being consumed with outcome, how I was going to place in a tournament, what number I was going to be on the team at University of Alabama. I was consumed with outcome, performance, how I was doing instead of the process. And so years later, when I actually quit golf in college, went back to college without playing a sport, and then entered the LPGA as a teaching instructor and ended up playing professionally some at that time on satellite tours. I learned through disc profiling that was taught at that time in the LPGA that how important it is to know yourself. Self-awareness is a superpower. And if I could go back to college, I would have, I was way too hard on myself, consumed with outcome, performance, and wasn't doing the little things anymore, wasn't enjoying it. And, those things are very important. And so I applied that to my teaching business, looking at different profiles and people and teaching everybody a little bit differently and, teaching the mental game and how important that is. And I created a big business due to some skin cancer issues and cataract issues and everything else. I had to step away from the teaching tea and being outside and everything. And by chance at that time, I'd been a golf instructor. I got call after call from people saying, can you help me with my anxiety if you can't teach my swing? Can you help me with a great junior golf schedule? Can you help me with that? And after the 100th time of saying, no, I can't, I don't do that. I'm not qualified for that. My husband was like, yeah, you're qualified. So I started taking my first clients that were mainly golfers. That was about 15 years ago, I'd say, and got into the, coaching world. And again, by chance, I got a call during COVID from a grandfather. She lets me talk about her. Everything's confidential in my business, but Dawson Archibald loves for me to talk about our time together as her mental game coach, and got a call from her grandfather saying she had missed some diagonals at World Cup tryouts and didn't make the team. And I was like, I don't work with equestrian clients. I'm a golf performance instructor. And so through that, I got the confidence I can do this by applying basic principles of, it doesn't matter what sport it is, that it's pretty same philosophy of getting clients to know who they are inside and out, their strengths and weaknesses, and find some balance to their profile. And I just will never forget those months of working with Dawson. And she went on to be a Triple Crown champion, as we all know. And basically all we did was just go after calm and collected. She had a big engine of wanting to win. That was her whole being, and worked on finding some balance of that. So that's kind of the background of how now I'm primarily equestrian clients, and that's how that happened.
Wow.
Cool.
That's a big story.
No, that's a great story. It's a great story.
It's awesome.
So, I don't know, is it better to step in and maybe talk about disc up front?
Sure, I can talk about it all day. I love it. I'm very passionate about it. My favorite quote is, self-awareness is the beginning of all wisdom by Aristotle. I think a lot of amateurs in our sport really don't know who they are or why things happen, maybe why they cry if they don't do well, why they throw up before the show. They're aggravated by, why is this happening to me? What is going on? They don't know the why behind it. DISC is a simple personality profile that you take the test and kind of see a window into who you are as a rider, exhibitor, trainer. And once you start studying who you are, you can understand why things happen, and then take tiny steps that I call tools to do training and showing to perform a lot better and have a better grit about you. Have a strong mental game, and haven't really talked about the horse yet. The horse, it's not like going out on my pro golfers that it's just them, on the golf course for 5 hours. This is an 1,100-pound animal that has their own personality, and it's a real challenge that you have to have a good mental game dealing with our wonderful breeds of whether it's driving a Hackney pony or a roadster horse or saddlebred. You can have the best horse, right? You can be very talented, but if your mental game isn't there, you can get beat by somebody that was dialed in and focused.
Absolutely. I was gonna say, Sarah and I talk about that all the time. Like if you're showing and you're not present that day and you're not there, just hanging on the horse and you're hoping that the horse is gonna do it all, and that's just not gonna happen. That's not a good way to go into it. So you have to be present. You have to be on your A game all the time when you're showing.
And I just want to circle back for just a second, just because it sounds like disc is kind of the base of how you kind of get started with all of this. Can you just really quickly talk about what kind of information do you get out of that test that helps you kind of move forward in helping somebody in their riding?
I choose to stick with it. It's a very old-fashioned personality profile where the philosophy is that there are 4 different traits of personality that we all either have very little of, or a good balanced amount, or very high in, and that it makes up who we are. And the 4 traits spell out the word DISC, DISC. By the way, it's a free mini test is on my website at Straight Shot Inc. It's inc.com, and you can log on and take it for fun and get a pie chart of your results. The 4 traits are, the first one is dominance. That's always pretty easy to figure out. I call those my lions. If you tested high in dominance, you are going to be obsessed with winning, want to win, do anything to win, tend to walk fast, do things fast, dive into the business and want to win, and then going to get upset if you don't, So the high dominance is the champion trait of grit and wanting to win. There are great strengths of that, but if you get too much of a good thing, it becomes a weakness. So I go into things with that. The next one is I. Those are my influencers. And it's kind of funny that influencer is actually a job these days having to do with this trait, and that is how socially connected somebody is, how much fun they are having, how much joy with their sport. They have a really big perspective. This, I tell my trainers that this is a client that you want because they'll be in it for the long haul. They have a macro instead of micro view of, I'm in this forever for friends and connections, and it's fun, and they'll be in it forever. So that's a benefit of being an I for influence, and that's how social. If you have very little of it, you're an introvert. The next one is an interesting one. That is the trait of strategic thinking. It's also called steadiness. This is the trait that kept me from winning a lot on the LPGA, being on the PGA tour and winning. I did not have much of this trait, and that is method, strategy. These are my equitation riders, by the way. Learn in a process format, very patient. They are students of the game, student of horsemanship, willing to go long haul with learning. They're never done learning. They like books. They like whatever. So that's the strategic nature that's, very needed in our business. If you're going into the ring, you've got to have good ringmanship and have a thought process before you go in, right? People that are low in that get very antsy, don't want to listen to anybody and think they know everything. So the last trait are, and by the way, that was the beavers. I call those my beavers if they are high thinkers, over processors. The last trait is fun. That's the golden retriever. That is compliance. Someone that is high in compliance is going to be very loyal, the hardest worker that you can find, give all of themselves to everyone, high standards, very hard on themselves. And if you get too high, you have a self-worth that is tied into your performance. In other words, I kind of feel good if I win and I'm a good person. And then if I don't perform well, I didn't live up to expectations. And therefore, this feels really icky. Those are my children that can cry, sulk, feel bad, feel like they're not good, don't live up to what the trainer wants. And then they may have an overbearing parent that is trying to do well, but puts even more pressure on them. So compliance can be a pretty interesting trait. It's a strong trait. If you happen to test 0 in compliance, which I have an MBA client that tested 0, you are going to be rebellious of the status quo, a free spirit, and be able to laugh off a bad performance and blame it on something else, which can be somewhat healthy sometimes. In closing, there is no bad trait. It's all interesting and who we are. Again, my philosophy that I've kind of cultivated myself is that when I test like a couple of nights ago, I had a pre-Olympic volleyball player, and she tested very balanced pie chart, right? 4 equal parts. And my theory is experienced, successful, top echelon athletes have learned through trials, tribulations, failures, great coaching, great wins to kind of find balance themselves, sometimes the hard way without knowing DISC. So basically what I do when I'm working with somebody over a period of time is try to get them to find some balance in their profile.
So interesting. Mine, I was like 2% dominance. Like it was super, super low. So I was like, oh, and then 42% steadiness. So yeah, that's so interesting to hear you talk about it. Like, yeah, that's pretty much me.
So a quick, if I were to counsel you with a couple of tools, which is fun, just a little mini sample of what I would do, is to get you to maybe make a highlight video with your favorite music over it and watch it again and again. Your subconscious is then going to brain map, how successful that you are, and you can do this, and watch a highlight video and you brain map that, and you'll start to feel more confident. Maybe develop a mantra. That would be another tool, a mantra of be fearless in the ring, things like that. And then to stop overthinking, overanalyze, get your thoughts dialed down before going into the ring. I have a successful person right now that is turned things, it's been a game changer. They're high S, and they are thinking it's just another open gate. It's just another open gate. Let's go in and kill it. Let's go, you know, and that helps them be more present moment. So mantras are powerful, highlight videos, vision boards. I'm really into that. Vision boards bring confidence. You pass it every day and you have winning pictures or fun things that you want to do. So
I know we've talked about this a little bit, but can you maybe expand a little bit on, like you said, like if you're playing golf or even in a team sport, you're either playing by yourself or you're teamed up with other people. But when we're doing this with a horse, it's this, it's this nonverbal communication, and I feel like the horse is such a wild card in all of this. You can think that you have it so trained and so dialed in. How does your coaching, or how do you approach coaching around I don't know what I want to say, the nimbleness that you kind of need to, I always hear Mary Orr. I was down there for adult camp, and she was talking to everybody about riding the horse they're on today. And just because you had ridden it yesterday, or just because you watched somebody just ride it, that's not necessarily the horse you're going to get. And that, that you as a team might be different, their energy level's different. Some get better as they ride longer, some get more nervous as they ride longer. And so how do you apply this to being able to be a better partner to your horse?
what you just talked about is being able to dial down all the clutter in the conscious brain, which is the front part of the brain, and let the subconscious work, which is intuition with the horse, what the horse needs in a bubble of present moment, and realizing that you've got to kind of turn off your brain to be connected with the animal underneath you or that you're driving, and that it's not going to be the same every day, or each horse isn't going to be the same. And the only way that you can connect and be the best partner with the horse is what the horse needs, which is a low frequency mindset. Not worried of what's going to come, not worried of, am I going to get this canter lead? Oh my gosh, I had a stumble back there. Well, now I've blown it. The horse doesn't need or want all of that. Really good catch riders that I talk to are having to do what you just said, adjust to the horse. It's the horse you have. And that's actually a really cool exercise to learn to, if you're going to catch ride, you have to have a very strong Navy SEAL mental game, correct? Just focused on that only, what you're doing, present moment. That way, you can connect and know what that horse needs in a split second. You'll, be able to have good ringmanship and all of that. So the $1 million question is, how do I get into a dialed and focused mindset to be able to know what my horse needs, right? To be able to ride every step and feel just that step to know what they need. A lot of my clients, some of my magic tools are pre-lesson, pre-show, pretty much the same. Have you done stretching? Like if you're going to ride a horse well, you're an athlete. We've got to start thinking of ourselves as athletes. Did you stretch or just get out of the car and climb on the horse? Do some stretching, warm up, do some breathing exercises like some track and field person is going to go through a series of breathing exercises to calm everything down. Are you doing some biofeedback training of scanning, just seeing where any tension is and relaxing and letting that go out into the ground? Are you doing prep to be low frequency when you get on that horse? A lot of people, made these mistakes as well. You're running a little late, you're going to the lesson, whatever, you got a lot on your mind, crazy day at work, you walk in, you're a little late, jump on the horse. Not the best way to start out. In my workshops, I love reminding people, we all know it, but be reminded that horses are frequency readers. They read frequencies, right? For millions of years, they have stayed alive in a herd by reading frequency. They can feel a fly on their back, right? They can feel everything, read frequency, hear a heartbeat from 4 feet away. And so they know your blood pressure, heart rate, mental frequency. If you have, if your mind is like a jet engine, running around and you're over processing, overthinking, over analyzing, they sense that. And then, they become nervous. So we all know that. But the science of it is that they are reading those frequencies, that energy. They can read that. So it's important to dial everything down. That's a hard sell for me to come into somebody's life and say, you got to be cool, calm, and collected and not want it so bad when they have had success being real, whoever wants it the most is going to, go in there and kill the competition, whatever. And I come along and say, no, the secret to elite performance is a mindset frequency that's right above drowsy. It doesn't mean you're lazy or whatever. It's just that you are dialed in and using the power of now, present moment, and you are riding every step and in those moments. And the horse loves that mindset.
Absolutely. Do you think it's different for adults rather than children to get on that wavelength? Because a lot of, we teach adults and kids, and I'll say a lot of times it's harder for me to teach adults because they have so much going on in their lives and they bring so much in versus kids who just come after school and they're just happy to be at the barn. Do you see, is one more difficult for you in those sessions or pretty equal?
I would agree that when we're 8, 9, and 10, you're doing it for fun. You don't know a lot yet. You tend to not compare yourself to others yet. Adults sometimes really have a hard time with over processing, over trying, getting in their own way, so to speak, just because of a lot of experience or thoughts of, all kinds of thoughts in their minds. So yes, I would agree with you that adults can be a little bit more challenging. However, I could talk till midnight about phones. However, children are hit with so much today.
Yep.
With social media and phones and comparing themselves, and parents always want the best. I have 4 children of my own. You always want the best. And sometimes the parents' personalities go into the mix at horse shows of that child finding it hard to dial down, right? So I'll just put it this way, there's challenges with every different sector. It's people have challenges with finding calmness these days.
This episode is brought to you in part through the generous support of the Monarch Show Series National Championship. It's their efforts to build a better, stronger, and more inclusive horse show industry that makes projects like this podcast possible. Make sure to join us for this year's show in September at the historic Illinois State Fairgrounds in Springfield, Illinois. For more information, go to monarchshowseries.com.
Can you expand a little bit about, you've referenced this Navy SEAL mentality. Can you define what that is or tell us what that is, and maybe a little bit more about how you apply that to horsemanship?
Define Navy SEAL attitude. Navy SEALs do the little things. Navy SEAls are structured with process over outcome. The way that they can run 25 miles with something on their back is their present moment. I'm going to get from this to this, this point. And then now we have another point to get to. They're very present moment. That's how you do crazy, unbelievable things, right? Like a marathon run, by being present and losing yourself present moment. So the Navy SEAL mindset with training or showing or, practicing equestrian feats is, how can I set up a structure that winning will happen on its own? Dive and trust in the process of lessons, diet, exercise, putting my phone down, making time for lessons. If your goal is to win at Louisville and you're taking 1 lesson a week, I don't think a Navy SEAL would agree with that training. If you are drinking a bottle of wine the night before you show in the morning, I don't think a Navy SEAL would agree with that. So looking at the process and trusting that, and then relaxing about your performance, just go do it, right? Just go put it on autopilot and do it. So Navy SEAL to me means, are you setting up the structure for your goals to come true.
In that, and I know I struggle with this, and you mentioned it a little bit in there, separating that a win. We're going to a horse show because we want to win. How are you helping people kind of balance out? I don't even know how to exactly ask this question. Like how you're balancing out the desire to win. I will honestly say I'm struggling a little bit to I'm like winning is work harder and go faster and do more and practice. And when you're talking about maybe kind of stepping back from that a little bit, it sounds very counterintuitive to me. And so how are you kind of balancing out that maybe like doing your best versus winning?
That is a loaded question.
My favorite kind.
It's a hard sell for me, right? To come into somebody's life, coaching them that has had success in the past by winning is everything. If you want it bad enough, you're going to go get it, kind of, and I come in and say elite performance is taking that energy, that competitiveness, that emotion sometimes, into practicing 10% harder, taking 2 lessons and 1 trip to the barn, doing a lunge lesson, learning to long line a horse, expanding your horsemanship and putting the grit and determination and angst and everything into your training. And then when horse show week comes, the training and everything is there and the confidence that brings. And that's why I'm crazy about people having notebooks. Take a notebook to the horse show, either to journal, write down task lists, whatever. But get in the mindset of now is finally the fun part. Now I can relax. Now I can just go execute. Execution is the loss of space and time. Anybody listening that's had a great go in the show ring knows what I'm talking about, where I could barely remember it. Didn't really care who was watching or anything. It was just, it had a flow to it. It was beautiful. I knew we were on. We were just enjoying it, right? And then our poor performances, we can remember every single thing about it. Execution is loss of worry of blue ribbon. My favorite question to ask people with this to try to sell them on it is, think back over one of your best rides, your best shows. By chance, were you ill? Did you get stung by a bee maybe? Were you late? Did something happen that was did you not sleep the night before? Did you maybe have a headache? And everybody just kind of looks at me like, oh my gosh, you are a witch. You are how did you know that? Because when you might feel really sick or not feel well or something happened or whatever, you're only concentrated on just getting through 1 minute at a time, right? Oh my God, I just want to make it through this. You leave outcome thoughts and get into just process. And then all of a sudden you're in execution mode. So that's kind of a fun thing that I do sometimes and people go, oh my gosh. Yeah.
That is so true. One of our adult riders, I think at the last show, 2 shows ago, she had something going on or she was sick and she came and she was thinking about that. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm not feeling well. This isn't going great. I don't know how I'm going to ride today. And she went and won both of her classes and she had never ridden better. We're like, all right, okay. It's crazy when you're not overthinking everything. You're like, oh, I'm just thinking about this. I'm going to come and ride, and then you do better.
Yes. So the sports science behind that, her pain or not feeling well, dialed down her conscious brain because she was thinking of that and not the probably 150 things she's usually thinking of riding into the ring. And so it dialed that down so that she could be in more of an execution mindset. One rider, actually, the trainer came up with it. It was genius. And it sounds, everybody's like, oh my gosh, chewing gum. No. But it's in the makeup ring. Had a little tiny rider that's killing it this year, chewing gum in the makeup ring. Usually not like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't want to do that. The act of chewing gum, of course, she spits it out before she goes into the ring. The act of chewing gum took her mind off of all of her worries or what ifs and things. Chewing the gum was a present moment activity to kind of dial down everything. So that's also an example of your brain kind of starts to, you're having something to do and then able to execute in the ring better.
So for those of us who really don't want to go out and try to get a bee to sting them, or go lick a cup of somebody who was
Yeah.
sick.
Go get ill.
Go get ill.
Go get ill on purpose.
What are some other ways that we could, or some other practices or tools that we could use as somebody who's a little anxious about showing? What could we do to help?
My number one tip is pretty much the overall philosophy of what I do, which is take a notebook to the show. Have evidence of all of your rides and strengths and weaknesses and tools and things that you've been working on. And that notebook represents that you have done work. And that kind of always settles someone's mind of, I've got my notebook. Start feeling a little anxious, you can kind of journal in the back and then, write down your mantra, and so to speak. So I believe the frequency of writing and having a notebook is a really good calming of the mind effect, because it's kind of there and you're doing the details that nobody else is doing. So notebooks are really good. The most magic thing is professionals do this without thinking. Amateurs don't do it. Is time is not your friend at a horse show. Try not to pre-show just sit down and start chit-chatting or look at the class list or look at the horse magazines or get on your phone or whatever. A professional has a board of, a schedule, right? A task list. They're in task mode. They get on the horse, show it. There's another one. Amateurs need a schedule of, I'm going to get up, eat well, go to the barn, have a practice ride. In my practice ride, I have 2 goals. Then I'm going to eat a healthy lunch. I'm going to go lay down. Just a schedule of the day to kind of stay again, to help them just don't want down time, especially for an overthinker. When you get down to the hour before the show, I have clients that do earbuds, music, write in their notebook. I have kids that do coloring books, adults that do adult coloring books, read, listen to podcasts, take a walk, spend time with their horse, do a cheerleading session to themselves in the bathroom, to the mirror. You are going to step out of my way today, have a little session, come back, do some breathing, stretching, go to the makeup ring. That is going to be a lot better performance than, and I don't mean not to have fun at a show. There's plenty of time, but it's like a lot of people will chit chat, maybe go up to the show, watch the show. That's usually not a good thing to do. You're trying to get dialed in about yourself. So those are some of my tips of having a schedule to follow will be a confidence builder, and you will be calmer just doing that.
When you talk about notebook, are you talking about like for the lessons, like writing something down that you might have felt with your horse or something that you did? I think of it like I don't know, as a teaching tool, like, oh, I used my rail leg and this worked really well. Just an example. I don't know. Or I felt this and that didn't feel so great to me. Like, can you explain that a little bit more of like what someone could maybe write down? And is it like journaling after a lesson or after a class? And do you think that would help or helps people? Stuff like that. Because I feel like a lot of people that I teach could probably benefit from something like that.
I'd say this is I'm giving away my number one tool of
Yeah,
my
no,
business.
I was going to say
oh no, it's not. It is magic and it works. Like you wouldn't imagine in your job not to be organized with some type of notes or whatever. If you're in school, you have a syllabus and you're right. We're just bringing those to your writing. So there are no real rules. I have people, well, like myself, I've kept lessons for 10 years on the strengths and weaknesses of each ride, what the goal of the ride was, what my goal next time will be to work on X or whatever. And then there might be some journaling or some notes or whatever. I've come up with a new mantra or whatever. Notes on different horses, different lesson horses. Kind of the only way to get good at your craft is an evaluation of what you did, right? You have your strengths so that you know them, and then you cataloged your weaknesses, not being negative about it, but, what could I have done a little bit better? And then action steps on how you are going, how you're going to deal with that weakness. Then it becomes a success, right? You did it. So you're building, the notebook is helping build success. And it's really fun for clients to look back maybe a year and what their worry was or what their weakness was. And now that's almost like a joke. I can't believe I was worried about that at that time because they have improved so much. Another thing, if a scary thing happens or some unfortunate, you fall off, slip off, something, whatever, the notebook is a living document that there shouldn't be any fear going forward because you've done all of it's evidence of a bunch of work, right? And this one thing happened, it's probably not going to happen again because you have evidence of all of this great stuff and this was just one thing. It helps in that capacity too to get over something that may have happened. Lastly, it's important pre-show. You might have your little goal. It's not the blue ribbon. It should be maybe to I'm going to, just like last week's lesson, try to adjust the horse in the corner a little bit better and hit that straightaway, use my eyes to pick up a point. That worked last week. And maybe it just helps calm your mind, simplify things. And, it's a confidence booster too. This is all I need to be working on.
Hey everyone, we'll get right back to the show, but we wanted to take a second to say thank you for listening. We do this podcast for you, and we couldn't do it without you. It's the support of our IASPA members and sponsors like you that make this possible. And if you're not already a member or would like to become a sponsor, consider going to www.iaspha.com and signing up. We'd love to have you join us. And speaking of joining us, make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you listen. That way you'll never miss an episode. And now, back to the show. I know we talked about how horses kind of play into the mix, but could you also touch on how parents can kind of play into riders and horse show experience?
The parents have their own personality, right? And it's really fun when parents are open to taking the test on my website to kind of go, wow, I didn't know I was that much of a lion. I like to do well and I like to, compete myself and all that. Am I letting my competitive nature kind of slide over to this, whatever? Maybe it's a parent that puts a lot of pressure on their child and test high dominance, high compliance would be that pressure packed parent, well-meaning, wanting to do the best, wanting to help, wanting to coach, want to, do everything. They take the test and learn, oh my gosh, yeah, I am that way. And then they start to take steps to kind of back off a little bit, let the trainer do the coaching, a parent's job is only one thing. It's to be a cheerleader. End of story. Cheerleader.
A little bit of a twist on that as a trainer and riding instructor, I guess looking at that in twofold, like I try to be a little aware of, I know that I'm a little bit of an anxious person and most of the time probably very unsuccessfully trying to push that down a little bit and not put that on a rider who's getting ready to go show. So is there a way to kind of be looking at what your results to your disc are and how you're kind of approaching your riders? And then also is the flip side of that also looking at what kind of rider you have and being a better coach for that rider based on their results?
Yes, that last point of learning different profiles and being able to coach and teach and put that person in the ring based on their personality, that's a whole workshop in itself. But you can have your student or client take the test and kind of get a sense of how best to manage, for instance, if a child took the test and was very low I, being an introvert and maybe taking it too serious and everything, how can you incorporate more fun? Maybe little fun prizes, fun things, make things fun. A big turnaround sometimes, just a little tweak of that. Maybe everybody pre-show can work on their mantra and colored stickers or whatever, and all of a sudden they're feeling a part of things and relieved and having fun and seeing that it's a lot more than the blue ribbon. We're doing things together, whatever. So yes, that I work with trainers through my clients if the client allows me to talk to that trainer. And it is very helpful for the trainer to understand maybe this person doesn't need to be in the makeup ring. Maybe we need to find a quiet place. Maybe the student needs to go to the cost and effort. And I know it's a lot of effort to have a lesson horse at the show, to be able to get on prior, to feel settled by riding a lesson horse before then climbing on their show horse. So yes, it's very beneficial to learn how best one would be developed and coached based on their profile. Your first point of being anxious, you're, kind of looking at your profile and realizing, my energy can be contagious of being a little anxious or nervous or wanting all of this, and working on that yourself pre-show. Are you eating 4 or 5 times a day, or did you just fast for 12 hours like a lot of trainers do? That'll make you anxious. Are you drinking 12 huge jugs of water a day to be focused and calm, or do you just drink coffee? Looking at external step process things that you can be to hit the show grounds calmer.
Okay. Very cool.
Interesting. Yeah. I was just going to ask, how do you navigate? You had mentioned social media and the internet for younger kids. I know. How do you navigate, or what are some little things that you could maybe tell students? Be like, don't compare yourself to everyone you see on social media, because that's kids come in and they're constantly on Instagram. They're like, look at this horse, look at this horse, this person won, this person got last. And I'm like, just worry about yourself. I don't say it like that, but kind of like, you just need to focus on yourself, and you need to worry about you and your horse and not worry about all these external points. So I don't know if you could touch on that a little bit. You already kind of did, but yeah.
Yes. So to be the best performance, best mindset that you can, you need my train theory of there's a train taking off in this journey of you and your horsemanship, right? And you invite certain people on that train, and that's your journey. You didn't invite all of social media on that journey. And that's how you get really good is concentrating on control the controllables, just what I can do, what is my journey in all of this. Social media invites gazillions of people. It invites only seeing the best or even what is not real on social media. And it takes you off your mental game. There's nothing that takes people off their game more than looking at the class list, looking at social media. TikTok is really much more powerful than the other apps, because the science of the brain is we get addicted to it because we don't know what is next. And you flip through and then you see something you like. So it's kind of like endorphins and all this stuff go crazy, and, your brain lights up and it's addictive. So looking at your phone before a lesson or before a show is inviting very high brain frequency. So kind of unpopular opinion, but having a basket at the barn and the phones go in the basket, period.
Yep.
So that they can dial in. Top equitation rider last year ditched social media, deleted all her apps before junior league through, Louisville. And I know for certain that had a big bearing on how well she did. She dialed in. She was just, So yes, phones, social media, all of that. So what can you do about it? Put the phone down. I'm a big believer in vision boards and the notebook as well, of doing a vision board of fun still pictures or a highlight video on iMovie, whatever, of your horse, your things, your fun things you're going to do at a show, your vacations, your life. What story are you writing for you, not for other people? And that sometimes is a big fun homework exercise for people and it ignites joy and, hope. And this is going to be fun. What you need to be great at your craft.
Yeah. I like the vision board too. And if kids can maybe take pictures of themselves or use pictures of themselves, because I always try to tell them, like, you're on your own journey, and don't compare yourself to someone else because they're not on your journey. And I think that's a really cool idea. Yeah.
I had one barn last year. They did that as a kind of a preseason exercise. and everybody got together, and it was just really fun that they, worked on vision boards
Yeah.
and things that they wanted to do. And I didn't think about this when she said she was going to do it, how genius it really is, because each individual was working on their journeys, right? Their summers. And it kind of subconsciously reminded them, this is my, it's all individual journeys.
And now the final 5. Our favorite 5 questions we ask all of our favorite stable-minded people. All right. So if you were not into show horses, what would you be doing? And maybe I should preface this by, if you weren't into show horses or golf, what would you be doing?
I think that I would get on a competitive circuit of skeet shooting.
And why is that?
During COVID, like everybody, I was going through a mentally, not so great time. One of my fun tips and tools for people that need a spark in their life is do something that they're deathly afraid of. I went out and took a skeet shooting lesson, and it was just life-changing for that period during COVID, of something fun to do that scared the bejeebies out of me and made, when you're really afraid of something, you are going to be present moment. You're not going to be thinking of your grocery list while shooting a gun, So I just became addicted to it, and it was really fun, but I've fallen off on it lately, the last couple of years, and something I'd like to get back to.
Cool. To some degree, we all have a horse addiction. What do you think is at the root of yours?
Oh my gosh. I didn't mention Molly. Molly was my third child, was what really got us into saddlebreds, and her taking lessons, and eventually, just being an excellent rider. But I liked it before then. I really think it's in your DNA. I remember being a little girl, like millions of little girls that want a pony. I lived in a subdivision, but we'd ride bikes, and there was a farm with a horse, and it was like seeing something magical, just innate. And that's with all breeds. I mean, I just my heart is lifted when I see a pony, a horse, anything. I think it's just innate.
Big picture, what is the greatest gift that your involvement in horses has given you?
Gosh, that's easy. Literally, I have met people that just some of the best friends of your life through that connection. Just people you can count on, people that lift you up, people that just are fun and interesting, and you learn something. And just, I feel it's a very group of people that are willing to help and do great things for each other. And it's just a great friendship community.
What is the biggest risk you've taken, and how did it pay off?
Biggest risk.
Besides learning how to copy and paste on your new MacBook Air.
Command C, Command V.
V.
Biggest risk. Okay. I was the baby of the family and had never babysat, didn't hang around little kids. I was kind of an old soul. I think a risk I took was to have 4 children. That was, if you had told me that I was even capable of that or whatever, and I just got back from Charleston. They all live in Charleston, South Carolina, all 4. They're all best friends, all hang out together, Sunday dinner, and here I am in Kentucky. That just nothing more rewarding. And to think that I set out thinking, can I do this or whatever. So I'd say having 4 children and the benefits of, having adult best friends that are your kids.
I love that.
That's cool. Yeah.
And lastly, what is something that you're currently very excited about?
Let's see. What am I? I recently in the last year was contacted to just give a talk, like I love my workshops though, and I love going into barns and whatever, but I was invited to give a speech on a certain topic and just go and speak. It was a big challenge, really fun, a lot of people there, really excited, and just thought of the future of being invited to corporate events or whatever to give some of my feedback and everything. So hoping to kind of look into that in the future.
Very cool. Well, I thank you so much for taking time and not only your time, but all of this insight into some stuff that all of us can actionably take on and try doing. And sure appreciate you being here with us.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. Thank you very much. It's great to get to know you all.
Yes, you too. Thank you again. It's great.
We want to extend a huge thank you to Betty for her time, her insights, and for sharing some real-life tools we can try the next time we ride. If you would like to learn more about Betty, her business, and what she offers, go to straightshotinc.com. Now put down your phone, pick up the reins, and we'll see you back here next time. No, hey, don't forget to jot some stuff down in your notebook when you're done.